Want to know why Disney has gone so far over the deep end in the last few years? It doesn't take a genius to notice that this sick, evil company, who's been responsible for butchering and defacing some of the greatest franchises in history, has also done the same to its own brand. Elemental, Onward, Strange New Worlds, and Wish have bombed in the box office, while simultaneously forever tarnishing the Disney brand. The ugly truth of the matter is that Disney is rotting from the inside out, as an ideological infection has eaten through its fat, bulging corpse. Alan Ng from Film Threat compiled an incredible series of articles known as the D-Files, detailing the ongoing plots to eliminate any displays of traditional morality and quality from the creatives of Disney, which eventually chased the veteran creatives away. A lot of those veteran creatives that we all knew, grew up with, gave us some of the best titles in Disney history, they're all gone. They're all leaving, and I'm going to tell you why. As we tour through his incredible discoveries captured from the eyewitnesses of the veiled Disney animators, I will also be referencing Bob Iger's memoir, Ride of a Lifetime, which explores many of the disrespectful acquisitions that have caused the collapse of this entertainment supernova. Now, before we get going, do me a favor and like the video and subscribe to the channel to show Disney that we are no longer supporting their evil attempts to plague the next generations. Now, to understand the birth of this infection, we need to go back to a much simpler time, when the webs of deceit just began to form. The beginning of the end. After Bob Iger had taken control of Disney as CEO back in 2005, he was itching to make an impact. With his sights on Pixar, Bob eventually convinced Steve Jobs, the highest stakeholder of Pixar, to sell him the company. Jobs was extremely hesitant to sell, but eventually folded to a $7.4 billion offer that mountained over the acquisition of Star Wars for $4 billion in 2012. Now, the Pixar acquisition came a lot earlier than Star Wars, but just for reference, that's a huge difference. The difference between the two was that Pixar was worth more to Bob Iger simply, and the deal came along with several titles in the works that were near completion. So it's definitely worth a little bit more logistically, right? They're going to make some money off these titles. I'll give Bob Iger that for offering that huge number. But what one of the real money makers of the whole deal was that it came with one of the visionary magic men filmmakers of Pixar, John Lasseter. John Lasseter was credited for his incredible direction, creation, vision, and the story of the Toy Story franchise. And he created the first fully computer animated feature film, which was Toy Story 1. He was promoted to the title of Disney's Chief Creative Officer, who was now in charge of leading and running both Pixar and the Disney animation departments. Through his tenure, he led the Disney company through many successful years, vaulting over every barrier that hindered the creative process. His team of animators were driven to produce the highest quality content, and nothing less was acceptable. This mentality could have often been stressful, but nevertheless prompted exceptional work that went on to advance the careers of many masterclass animators. He was also a familial man that truly loved and admired his team, and often offered hugs as a way to show his appreciation. His name was a household name for Disney lovers. With his influence in the field, it seemed too obvious that he should one day be at the top, wearing the shoes of Walt Disney himself. However, his influence took a turn for the worst shortly after the start of the Me Too movement began in October of 2017, when the horrors of the Harvey Weinstein debacle began to unwind. Soon, men in power of all sorts were put in the spotlight, many deservedly so, and others that were forced into the mix strictly based on inaccurate, unproven speculation. Unfortunately, he was one of those few. Rumors developed that his hugging and physical affections were seemingly less polite as it seemed, and that he had more wicked intentions. One of the leading rumors that was plaguing against him was debunked to be untrue, that suggested his unwanted advances prompted the exit of Toy Story 4 writer Rashida Jones. Rashida herself refuted that it was not the case. There were other unrelated reasons for her exit. Nevertheless, the horrible rumors continued to swirl throughout the company, baseless on any solid evidence. As the Disney company continued to feel the pressure, they eventually convinced him to take a leave of absence 1 month later in November. That happened awfully fast, 1 month after all this stuff broke. That's not a coincidence. Although we can't know for sure if any of these allegations are absolutely false. It's important to note that not a single one has been proven to be true, and there have been no legal prosecutions against him for any of it. Upon the exit of the great John Lasseter began the dark times of Disney animation, which served an abusive company culture that birthed the ideological infection that continues to plague Disney today. The infection grows. The power that comes from eliminating a person of influence had just began to sprout and covered the entire mindset of the leadership that followed. After Lasseter had left by his own choosing, Jennifer Lee and Pete Docter took his place. Lee became renowned for her credits as writer and co-director of Frozen, and Docter had clout from directing Up, Inside Out, and Monsters, Inc. Now, you would think that this sounds like a really credible duo to accelerate the success for Disney animation, though, right? Upon promotion, the company culture quickly shifted from a once familial atmosphere to a muzzling, fear-mongering shamefest. Friends and admirers of Lasseter, along with most of the creative team members, were horrified to defend him, fearing the same fate to fall upon them. His methods for animation and the creative process were no longer respected as a result of his downfall, which prompted hesitation from a select few. Any sort of criticism or defense for Lasseter were met with forced HR meetings and extensive sensitivity training exercises, which of course is everyone's favorite pastime. However, the worst was still yet to come, which exhumed during the production of Disney's forgotten film of the decade, Raya and the Last Dragon. The creative team for the film, alongside the new leader Jennifer Lee, set in place a new motion to develop an animation team of an even 50-50 split between men and women. Seeking to do this is not an evil idea. However, Disney's efforts to do so went against every core value that it once represented. The once compassionate company that sought to promote friendship, love, sacrifice was now bullying, rejecting, and eliminating its primarily male base of veteran animators simply to fill its quota. And shockingly enough, Lee and her cronies struggled to find enough female animators within the prestigious framework of students they normally chose from. In a rush, they looked elsewhere. More specifically, Reddit and Tumblr for the next creative masterclass animators to fill the shoes of the mastered old white guy animators that didn't really matter anymore to Disney. The company once sought after the highest professional talent from the most prestigious institutions in the world. Now, you can be as qualified as simply uploading your own independent work on Reddit for literally, dozens of people to tell you everything you want to hear despite any criticism. Disney tremendously lowered its standards to fulfill this demand as fast as possible with no time to spare. Now imagine how every animator felt during this time. These men and women gave their lives to perfect their craft, slowly working up to the top to have the job they do. A lot of them go from job to job in hopes of leading their own project, animating their own story. But all of this has gone to shame, and it's nothing short from devastating. The hard work and extensive training from their education no longer made a difference amongst the leadership of Disney Animation. Worse yet, the newly hired, inexperienced animators were also given the power to hire and refer their friends within the field, as long as they were women. Now, I don't know what business could possibly thrive, especially creatively, when new people have the ability to hire their friends to join them on these expeditions. They were given the power to hire other artists. Now I understand they'd be artists, they'd be animators, but that just makes the pool of high quality potential that much slimmer. Since that was the case, that means there wasn't really any sort of judgment or standards that could be set in which these friends would have to meet in order to join the creative team for Disney. I mean, a huge entertainment giant. How could they possibly let that happen? This motion led to the greatest extinction of talent of our time. Legally speaking, Jennifer Lee and her new power team of inexperienced animators can't just fire the old white animators strictly for no reason. Morally wise, I think they'd do it in a blink of an eye if they had the chance. So they had to get creative. and soon found ways to wear down their targets to the point of quitting their hard-earned careers. The easiest and most common fashion of doing so was by degrading their importance and experience through their new assignments. The veteran animators were no longer taking on the important, substantial animating roles as they once did. They are no longer animating the exciting shots of Woody and Buzz Lightyear interacting with the world around them. Now, they will be animating the more mundane scraps regularly attended to by lower-level new recruits. Developing backgrounds, distant motion, and mostly irrelevant details became a common theme for the best of the lot to waste their time on. It's clearly a demotion without a change in title. And the same kind of example can be pulled using a lead singer of a band. Instead of being the lead singer, they are now doing sound equipment repair. Both are crucial to the performance, but differ significantly in importance and value in the process. Now, the humiliation continued to escalate when the tightening deadlines yielded rushed work. These poor guys couldn't even have enough time to complete their mundane work to the degree of high quality that they were used to, which was the norm of Disney. And despite it all, their passion and belief in their work continued to motivate many of them to try the best of their abilities despite the circumstance. They were also dealing with a new force that didn't take criticism well at all, though. That's when we learn as artists how to grow, how to become better artists, how to learn how to express ourselves greater, how to make that image we're trying to display out of nothing, how to make it look more real, how to make your message be told. That's what you need legacy artists, legacy creators to teach you. And these guys didn't want to know. They were annoyed by these veteran animators. And the new animators were easy to poke fun at the old guys, but were soft and utterly offended when they were given guidance to improve their work, which was so important because none of these people were really that experienced, especially working alongside a team. And you'd think that you would be receptive towards any advice a professional would attempt to pass on to you, right? I don't know how these artists couldn't have some sort of respect and admiration for these guys, for the men and women that built Disney, that created it, that animated some of the most classic scenes from the Toy Story movies even. It's insane. It was also clear that these new creatives weren't inspired by Walt Disney after all either. They were mostly inspired by millennial and Gen Z trends, and many in the mix were uninterested in the legacy of the messages and styles of Walt Disney animation, and disappointingly lacked a general understanding of his work. And now you're expecting a lot of these young people, they're going here, they don't want to learn from these giants that we stand on the shoulders of. That's their position they're in. They didn't want to learn from them, so I guess they're kind of in tough luck, right? Now how are they going to figure out how to do this? Well, the veteran animators obviously don't want to teach a bunch of people that are not going to be receptive to their ideas. So they sort of had to learn on their own. And they found that there's a lot of work in animating. This is not some simple 9-to-5 job. And funny enough, these new bright and brilliant Tumblr animators left in masses due to the hard work that came from the job. And as you know how Hollywood works, some of them ended up failing upwards and promoted to work on developing stories for the Disney brand. I think we all know when we've seen that happen, and it won't be long now before Leslie Headland is helming another big project. This madness, this ideological infection that had infected the exceptional framework of Disney had morphed into an unrecognizable monstrosity. And over time, the old white guys Disney no longer cared about succumbed to the disrespectful forces and left the company, while few remained muzzled in fear of losing their livelihood. Some of those guys still stayed around, and they're too afraid to speak up, to criticize, to say, this idea is bad, we shouldn't do this, because the company culture has gone whack. It's fear-mongering. And these poor people, men and women, they can't speak their minds because the executives will put them through the sensitivity training, they'll put them through HR counseling. It's a very negative company culture, which I think we all can believe to be true. Disney is sick from the inside out. Know this though, my friends, there is always a light at the end of the tunnel. The opportunities in the animation world are growing more and more, and studios are in search for the talent that Disney does not respect anymore. And these incredible animators are going places. To start, John Lasseter is running Skydance Animation, where he continues to lead a team of creative animators consisting of many that were once accomplished under Disney's regime. Partnering with Netflix, Skydance is bringing the beauty of the highest quality of animation back to life through the lens of the brilliant visionary himself. Jim Morris, the previous president of Pixar itself, is also working alongside John Lasseter, as well as the visionary animator Tommy DeFazio, who is credited for his work on the classic Lion King, Aladdin, Mulan, and Hercules. Now, I don't think Disney gets too much more classic than those two films. And one of my main reasons for making this video has to deal with this movie, which is one of the newest and best animated films of the decade, Wild Robot, which was directed by ex-visionary from Disney, Chris Sanders. His newest film is a perfect blend of humor and heart that resembles the authenticity of animation once shown many years ago. It is a beautiful story of family found in odd places, with a multi-layered story with mountains of depth. It's rich and satisfies every setup it created. I highly recommend it. And it's a pleasure to see that he's going in great places. Now, despite the trajectory that Disney has been going down, there is still lots of hope in the magic that could be made elsewhere. If you enjoyed learning about the implosion of Disney animation, please leave me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Now, if you would like to read more into this incredible story, I have the link in the bio for your consideration. Give it a read, it's fascinating. I also want to know, what are your thoughts on Disney's recent slate of terrible films? Yeah, Inside Out 2 was a good one. I'll admit, they did a good job with that one. But one decent good film from Pixar does not excuse a lot of the trash that came before that. Soul was good too, but other than that, I mean, what else is there? There's two good titles. Everything else was, like, how do you come back from that? So I want to know, do you think that, given the climate that this company's in, as well as the climate we're in today, do you think they can change? Do you think that they can recover from this? What do you think should be done to set this company in the right direction? Let's talk in the comments below. I'd love to talk more about it. I got a lot more to say than what I can just say in this video, so let's get a conversation going. As always, I appreciate you spending some time with me today. I thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.